Hey guys, welcome back to PAC Talk with me, your host Piet Vodden. I am here today with my good woman, Emylee, um, the old ball and chain. Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a minute.
It has.
It's been a while since
minute.
you've been on.
I know. I've been busy.
We only have
we all have been very busy.
we have all been very busy. We only have one camera and one microphone between us. So if this looks a little bit, we're very close. If this looks a little bit weird, we apologize. But we do genuinely like each other, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
But we're naturally going to definitely push each other out of the frame.
Yeah, this is a fairly constant thing in meetings when we're on Zoom meetings. Emylee will turn the computer to face herself.
Yeah, because Peter goes like this. Peter moves with his hands, and he needs a lot of space.
I'm dramatic. I'm a very dramatic person. Okay, guys, today we want to talk about non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are things we've talked about in the past a fair bit, especially during our very famous Limitless Challenge. But this is something we try and live by all the time. This isn't just a Limitless Challenge thing. This is something we try and do, obviously, day in, day out, week in, week out. And when we think about non-negotiables, essentially we can divide them up into three categories. We can think about our philosophy, like the things we believe, and kind of our code, our own personal code.
I like to say things that you'd say, I'm the type of person that, or no matter what, and then fill in the blank, like a fun Mad Lib.
Right. Exactly. And then beyond that, you have actions. So the things you actually do on a daily basis, the things you wake up in the morning, maybe you do something first, and the things you do throughout the day that are your non-negotiable. These are the actions I have to do during the day to make me feel a sense of completion, to make me feel happy, to make me feel like I'm moving forward, all that good jazz. And then the last thing we can think about is kind of like the bare minimum action. So if shit goes south, like what's the least I can do to feel like some sense of accomplishment and that the wheels didn't completely fall off? So there's three things to think about there.
Yeah, it's like an umbrella, and there's like the philosophy, and then you're like, okay, what are the daily actions that kind of back up this philosophy of the type of person that I am / want to be, want to move towards? And then I love how you put that, like if all hell breaks loose, if shit hits the fan, if nothing else, then you have these kind of bare minimum habits that still make you feel like you can put your head on the pillow and like you had a successful day, or at least you had a good enough day. Maybe not the best, but good enough. 90% is showing up.
And we did take some time to write down our own. Do you have those, man? So Emylee's gonna read these out. These may be helpful to you, maybe not. But this is just to give you an idea of the non-negotiables that we decided for ourselves.
Okay, so I'm gonna read Peter's first. Should I try to read them in an English accent?
Sure.
No, you always hate it. Your mom especially hates it. Okay, no, I won't. But okay, Peter. I'm the type of person who trains daily, wakes up early. I can attest to that. Puts his children first, always has one more round in me, / never gives up. Commits to nutrient-dense foods first. Stays positive, which is the number one thing that I love about him, and doesn't judge. Instead, listens and searches for understanding. Do you want to piggyback on?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. Yeah. The trains daily thing, obviously it might seem obvious to you guys. Like, of course, I am a gym owner and I love fitness. But it goes beyond that. It's not just about fitness. It's a mental thing. Like, I talk about this a lot, and I've talked about it with people a lot. And, we all agree that, doing something physical and getting something physical done in the gym gives you a sense of mental clarity, gives you kind of like, it's almost like therapy, right? You're using fitness, you're using exercise as a form of therapy, and you feel, a sense of completion. You feel like you did something positive. You did something that you didn't necessarily have to think deeply about. Like sometimes we get so caught up with everything that's going on in the world. There are many problems, but something as simple as like lifting weights is very primal, and it's just a wonderful simplicity that adds to the quality of my day. So trains daily is something that I just do it. It's, I always say, like, once it becomes a habit, once it just becomes something you do, it isn't even, it's not a chore. It's not something like, oh God, I've got to go and train. It's just like, it's just what you do. This is what I do. And once it becomes that, that's when you start really, obviously seeing results, and it will get there for everybody.
With enough bare minimum habits.
Yeah. Wakes up early. Again, this is just something for me. Like, I just feel like I get more done. I feel I'm more purposeful when I wake up early. Obviously, when you have kids, it allows you that just a little bit of time to yourself before the kids wake up, that you can have for yourself. And, I just feel like I need that, rather than just waking up and the kids are already up. And then it's just like, your day, just like you're almost like starting on the back foot. So I like to wake up early. I like to have a little bit of time to myself with a coffee and just like breathe. So that's very important to me. Obviously put my kids first, like as all good dads do. There's nothing more important than the health and safety of my kids. I do see myself as a provider for those kids, and I want to do right by them. So they will always come first, no matter what. Always have one more round in me, never give up. And I think this is just something, I don't know, it's just always been in me from early, childhood, where I've never been great at anything, but I've always managed to like stick around long enough to kind of like go beyond other people, like kind of outlast everyone. Like maybe that's true in business, maybe that's true in fitness. But yeah, it's that thing of like, I don't think you have to be the best at everything. The most important thing is the effort you give, and attitude is everything, as my old friend Martin Holgate used to say. Having that attitude, showing people, like I always say, like the gym and your physical work in the gym is revealing a part of yourself. And I think the part that I like to reveal in myself is just that never say die attitude. Like, again, I will not be the best. I will not be lifting the heaviest weights. I will not be the fastest, any of that stuff, but I will go the distance. And that, that's important to me. Commit to nutrient dense foods first. I think this is an important one, especially now, especially in America. There is so much crap out there. There is so much man-made, chemically enhanced, shitty food that we can and drink, that we can consume on a daily basis if we let ourselves. And there's so many diets out there. There's so many things you see on Instagram or Facebook or whatever that's going to lead you down a path. And if you always just go back to eating real nutrient dense foods first, that's going to be your staple. That's going to be the thing that sets you up for success. That's what we're meant to eat. That's what we've been eating for thousands and thousands of years. That's what we evolved to eat. So it's focusing on that stuff first. Like if you're just eating real food, like non-chemically enhanced food, it's going to be relatively hard to actually gain too much body fat. The reason we are gaining weight as a people, as a human race, is because of all the chemically enhanced foods. It's because of all the crap that we're eating. It's not because we're eating too much steak and broccoli. It's because we're eating too much, like I said, chemically enhanced fake foods that we're just not evolved to digest. We're not evolved to eat. Our body just can't use it very well, and it just gets stored as fat. So always start with real food. It's going to give you the best bang for your buck. It's going to give you the most energy. It's probably going to be cheaper. It's going to sustain you for longer. It's going to give you better sleep. It's going to give you less jitters. It's going to cause less anxiety. So always start with nutrient-dense food. There are a million benefits to it. Staying positive. Yeah, kind of. It's not like, I'm not like I wake up and clap my hands and I'm just like, oh my God, everything's so great. Isn't everything wonderful? That's not the thing. Obviously, I, like everyone else, have my struggles. Like we deal with a lot of stress. Things come at me and us every day. And, you have to stay positive. I read a great quote once. It's like, and it was like, how do you stay so positive? It's like, when you have kids, you have no choice but to be positive. Like you can't wake up and be in a negative mindset every day, because that will rub off on your kids. And then it becomes like a real problem. It's like if you're constantly negative, if you're constantly
like, because I think you were like this before you had kids. Like you naturally will always, like I always think like it's, instead of like, oh, I'm positive, it's like I'm always just going to see the glass half full. Like I'm always going to choose the most productive. I'm always going to choose like to be moving towards progress, as opposed to dwelling in whatever it is.
Well, and
I feel like you've always been like that.
Well, and I think that goes back to the always have one more round of me. It's like you have to think about the long game. It's like, yes, I'll have my negative moments, and yes, I'll have my catastrophes, and yes, my chaos. And anyone who's in my staff meetings, and Laura will attest to this, it's like, Pete, you're not always positive. Pete, you said this was, and it's like, yes, I'll have my fights and I'll have my struggles, but the overwhelming like sensation is positivity, and is to move forward, and is to find a way. And I think, like I said, I don't really see that as a choice. I think it's the only way we can exist. And if we surrender to negativity, then, we're in a downward spiral. So don't surrender to it. And then the last one, don't judge. I listen and search for understanding. There's just so much polarization, and there's so much, and so many people are just so full of attitude, and they either talk like they know everything, or they have a strong political belief or a strong religious belief, and they want to ram it down your throat and like, this is right, I'm right. And it's just like, everybody needs to take a step back, listen to everybody else. And this is very true in fitness, when everyone wants to go down the road of dogma and be like, this is the way forward, this is the way to fitness. And it's like, if you just take a step back, you will find that there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides to every story. And if we just listen to those sides, and if we take in everyone's input, we're going to have a much more balanced, much more well-rounded opinion of things. And we're not going to be stuck in this kind of like tunnel vision of right and wrong, because black and white is not a thing.
Which really, I think boils down to what our, tagline or whatever you want to call it that we've kind of built over the last several years is that there's something for everybody. So there's no room for dogma. There's no room for right or wrong, or being so in one way, or that our way is the way, or that there is the way. It's there is only your way. And our job is to help you figure out what that is. And if we're doing our job right, then there will be something for everybody, and that may look different.
Yeah. You want to talk about your non-negotiables?
Yes. Okay. I will list them off first. I am so again, this is more kind of philosophy. We have some daily actions in there to kind of blend the two categories, but mostly just philosophy driven. So I'm the type of person who says challenge accepted, who journals often, always finds the light, always lends a helping hand, moves every day and values ability over aesthetics, is hungry for knowledge, spends time outside in nature, chest bumps the world, and builds a better future for my kids. So yeah, challenge accepted. I feel like that is part Aries in me that just likes to ram my head through walls and do first and then, think after. But I think that having an attitude,
which is how PHAROS was born, by the way.
100%. But I feel like it is definitely both my greatest asset as well as my Achilles heel and weakness, that I will just be perpetually into okay, this is a challenge and I'm leaning into it, and I know that it's going to be a challenge and it's going to suck and it's going to be hard, but I am the type of person that says challenge accepted. And because I always try to find the light, or sees the glass half full, that was just my way of saying it, that it's going to work out, journals often. I would say over the course of my life, that is the one habit that I have stuck to the longest out of every habit and thing that I have tried. That has been the one thing that's stuck and has made the biggest difference, I think.
Yeah, I'm always really impressed. Even if we've had a rough night, or we've been up with the kids, or we're stressed about something, I'll always come down. I'll see Emylee sitting in a chair writing her journal, no matter what. And with me, often I don't journal. I'm really bad with that stuff, and I should journal. It would definitely help me.
I feel like your Instagram is your journal.
Yeah, almost.
It's your journal for everybody.
Yeah,
mine's just not as eloquent as yours.
Yeah, but yeah, it is an impressive thing, and I think it's very therapeutic for you, and
yeah, and really productive. Half of the journal is letting it all out, and complaints or to-do lists or here's what I did, and some of it is working out systems or thoughts, or things that I haven't quite, that all of the little puzzle pieces that I'm trying to put together. Yeah, it just feels like a really nice way to put the monkey mind of my brain into something that feels like progress.
Yeah.
Always lends a helping hand. I always joke that I'm the type of person that, for better or worse, will always stop my workout in order to help somebody that needs, oh, you need to tell, you need a membership question, you need something. I got you. I'll stop whatever I'm doing, and a little bit is that is it lazy / procrastination, or is it that non-negotiable? But I really can't help it. I'm oh, you need something, I got you. That's just always the first thing. And if I can help, I'll try to help. And I think that's obviously why we're in this, field, because it means that we're perpetually in a state of trying to find the people that we can help and try to find the right way to help that person, which may look different for everyone.
Yeah. You missed one.
No,
always finds a light?
no, I said challenge accepted, and then I said in that lens really
Oh,
well to my
okay.
other non-negotiable is that I always find the light.
Yeah.
I just went out of order there a little bit. We got our script right up in
Yeah.
here in front of us. Don't worry, in case we get lost. Okay, and then moves every day. So notice that Pete's was trains daily, like physical, like work, and mine is like moves as it relates to mechanics, strength, and conditioning. So I don't necessarily strength train every day. I don't necessarily lift every day. I don't necessarily do any one thing every day, but my non-negotiable with myself is that I will move my body. I will try to find a way to do something. And sometimes I'm on a huge kick and I'm like, I'm exploring a goal and I want my muscle up and I'm like really, going for it. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, can I like do 2 times my body weight in deadlift and blah, blah, blah. And like do it. I'm, all of that kind of like fun, like performance driven stuff as opposed to the aesthetic driven stuff. And sometimes I'm like, oh, my body is wrecked. I can't do that. Instead of beating myself up, I'm just going to now prioritize mechanics, aerobic conditioning, low stress protocol type stuff. So moves every day, though. I try to at least get out, get outside, get going, and keep that as a non-negotiable. Is hungry for knowledge. I feel like being a business owner has just committed yourself to like a lifetime of learning and like being slapped in the face with everything that you don't know and learning lessons the hardest and oftentimes the most expensive way. And I feel like I could either run away from that or I can be like, no, that's why I leaned into this because I am the type of person that for better or worse, it wants to know, wants to expand, wants to grow. And so I'm, good thing I chose entrepreneurship.
Well, and let me tell you, when she's hungry for knowledge, I'm talking like podcasts in the shower, on the toilet. Like there is not a moment that goes by when Emylee is not either reading a book or listening to a podcast. Like I cannot walk around this house without, what's the name of the woman? There's like 2 different women that you're always listening to on podcasts.
Well, huge shout out to Amy Porterfield.
Amy Porterfield,
who really started it all.
I feel like I know. I feel like Amy Porterfield is like part of our family right now.
Yeah. And now I feel like I feel like for the first like 6 years of PHAROS, we were just like so narrowly focused on what we were doing. We like weren't really like, we had the blinders on and we weren't really like looking outside. And then now that they've kind of like stepped into acquisition and more like business owner consultant or like, like help and podcast and value, then I've been listening to a ton of the Alex and Layla Hermosi stuff.
Well, here's the thing, and here's the reality of where we are in the business. PHAROS Echo Park grew very organically. It was friends, and then it was friends of friends, and it was friends recommending friends, and it was just easy is the wrong word, but it did grow very organically, and we took for granted that growth was. And then you get to a certain point where you have the 4 gyms, and then you're like, now we have to start thinking about sales and marketing, and that's just the reality of growing a business. And we are a family-owned small mom and pop shop type gym that now has to take sales and marketing seriously. And it isn't like,
do it in a way that doesn't feel awful.
Doesn't feel corporate and horrible. It's just like, oh, those guys have gone so corporate. They're like doing like ads and sales and marketing. Well, unfortunately, that is the reality of running a business, especially in Los Angeles, especially in California, where everything is so damn expensive. It's so hard to keep your head above water. Like you don't have a choice. At this point, it's like, either you do this stuff, either you do read books, listen to podcasts, and do everything you possibly can, or you die. You grow, you die. Yeah.
You grow. Maybe I'll change that. My non-negotiable.
Grow or die.
That might be. I'm a little.
That should be a t-shirt.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like my whole vibe's just a little lighter. All right. Spends time outside in nature. And it's funny because I wrote that before we moved to the mountains, and now we moved here, and I feel like that is like it was such a non-negotiable that we wanted our life to reflect that. And despite having now 4 gyms, city, mountain, beach, desert, and driving all around, there's still time for nature, and that is usually coincided with my morning journal.
Yeah.
All right. Chest bumps the world. I always joke that I want this on a t-shirt. This is the t-shirt that I want. I feel like it's really just a mantra to like help me keep my head taller and my shoulders back, like both physically, but also like mentally And emotionally, especially, as you know, like I said earlier, it's like being slapped in the face every day with like just a new problem or a new thing or just a new adventure to climb. And I feel like if I tell myself like, yep, but I'm the type of person that chest bumps the world, like I say challenge accepted and chest bumps the world. And it sounds like really stupid and cheesy and like dumb, but those two things I say to myself often, especially when it's when I need it the most, you know, and I'm like, damn straight, I chest bump the world. And it really does help. So and then the last one, of course, is like, why are we doing all of this? And why would it be worth it if not to build a better future for our kids? So that is always, top of mind. So those are our non-negotiables, and we want you to kind of go through and decide what your non-negotiables are. Now, we have like 8 to 10, which may be too much. Peter and I, we are not brief people. We are here, we definitely need editors, but we can't help it. We got a lot to talk about and a lot of different things that we like think about and want to prioritize. So your list could be, 3 to 5. It could be more in the 5 to 7, or it could be more like the 7 to 10, which is where ours are. It just kind of depends on the things that you're prioritizing now. Now, I will say these are usually things that they're not seasonal. Like if I look back, like truthfully, I pulled this up from our 2020, because at this time we only had one kid. So I pulled this out from a 2020 challenge that we did. And I just like grabbed the screenshot and came into this podcast and reading it now 4 years later and every year since we do it in the challenge. It's like we talk about it and it almost never changes. So in theory, these are not the things that would be like seasonal. Now, sometimes you're in your life and you're training for something, you're doing something, right? Like you're on a certain protocol, you're like in a different phase or season in your life. Their non-negotiables are not really that. Those are like your overarching principles that hopefully you have for the long haul. Maybe you make a few adjustments, but otherwise like you're in it to win it with them. Now, your daily actions, those could change depending on, your season, what you're training for, what your goals are, all of that kind of stuff. Now, I do like to boil down that my season or that like my daily actions are like, I always journal, right? So that was a part of my philosophy too. I always move. And right now I'm on a kick that every day I have my greens drink and my supplements because I'm trying to prioritize my inner health as much as my, muscles and performance kind of health. I'm like taking a look back into that like anti-inflammatory, stress protocol type stuff. I prioritize protein. I feel like that's the number one thing in terms of my diet that helps me stay on track. Like if I eat less protein, I'm usually eating more cookies or like, finding that I'm like having more cravings, feeling more stressed about food. But if I just prioritize protein, everything else, there's place for everything else, like I would say, probably right now I'm in one of the quote unquote best shapes of my life in terms of, the yo-yos of pregnancies and blah, 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 and all of that. And if I look back at the things that has got me there, it's not like I've restricted myself. Like how many Reese's peanut butter wrappers do you see in the car? Like
Good
there's
amount.
a fair amount, but I feel like because I prioritize something, it helps to kind of keep me in check there. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of like what the daily actions that I'm taking to hopefully like reflect some of those greater philosophy driven non-negotiables. My biggest one is like, okay, the 80-20 philosophy. Yeah. So it's like 80% of the time you're doing it right on, you're dialed in, you're like, living by your philosophies and like making yourself proud by your actions. And then 20% of the time you're like leaving room for like the more pleasures of life, right? That you're like not worrying about it, that it's a little bit, that you're more flex, that you're more lax about it. So, and then there's times that like maybe you're on vacation and it's more like 60-40 or more like 50-50 or who knows, like flipping in the opposite directions, right? But there's like always the times of your life that like, if you look at it, you're like, okay, what phase are you in right now? Are you in a 60-40, a 50-50, a 70-30? And I feel like for me, I really operate best at a 70-30. Like sometimes I'm 80-20. Usually I can't sustain 80-20 for that long. 60-40 doesn't make me feel that great about myself. Like usually I'm like, oh yeah, but like, oh, I could, leave some more room for this, or oh, I forgot my greens drinks, or oh, I'm not getting that much sleep, or oh man, I haven't journaled in a week and my brain is just going haywire, like all, those types of things. So I feel like I really operate best at that like 70-30. So I feel like those are kinds of in terms of my daily actions. I journal, I move. Right now am on like my greens and my supplements and my innards. I'm prioritizing protein, and I'm looking at my overall day thinking 70-30. So 70-30, 70% of my diet's right on, 70% of my fitness is right on, 70% of like, my brain effort to be putting on progress is right on. And then 30%, I'm giving myself some room and flexibility. What about yours?
I mean, I think you'll probably agree, like I'm probably more of an 80-20 psychopath.
You might even be
sometimes
85-15.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very like just controlled in, routine really. Like the time I get up, like, I have my mega fit meals. I always take my supplements. I always train. Like I'm just very controlled like that. And it's, I think for me, it's a like feeling, like you were saying, like feeling good about myself. But I'm just on this like big longevity thing, and like I want to be as alert and as present and as effective as I can be as a human being, as a father, as a husband, and all that good stuff. And I feel like if I do all that stuff, if I drink enough water, if I try not to drink too much caffeine, which I always fail at because I always drink too much caffeine. I feel like if I'm ticking all those boxes, then I just feel more effective as a human being. And it's not about like, am I in the best shape of my life? Arguably, I might be in some capacity, but I'm definitely the most kind of like organized, like everything's kind of in its bracket kind of thing. I'm ticking a lot of like good boxes, I feel. And again, things happen, shit happens, nobody's perfect, but I think I'm pretty consistent across the board. And I think that consistency, again, and people talk about consistency all the time, but consistency is like weeks, months, years. Like I've been doing this for so long, like I've been training for so long, and I've been quote unquote good, in whatever good means, but like I've been
20,
I've been consistent for so long that now I do get to see some of the benefits. And that is just like consistency. I see so many people, so many trainers, so many people in fitness that like, yeah, they love it for like 6 weeks and they're talking about it constantly for like 3 months or whatever it is. And people come and people go, and and like you've seen people on Instagram or Facebook, like they're the big thing for like 3 months, and they come and they go, and or there's a new fad that's around for like 6 weeks, 3 months, a year, whatever it is, and then it goes away again. It's like, if you've been around long enough, you see it. It's like, okay, here we go. Here's someone on another cycle of like this, that, the other. But if you've been around for a long time, if you're kind of long in the tooth like me in fitness, you just know that consistency and doing the basic things again and again and again are the most important things. Like, are you doing the basic movements? Are you doing your strength training in the planes that you should be doing it in? Are you doing something for your heart health? Are you eating the right kinds of foods? Are you sleeping enough? Like those consistencies, like long term, are all that matters. It's never about like, what special diet are you on, or did you see this new class that's like jumping on an elastic band up and down, whatever it is. It's never about that. It's always about, are you doing the basics consistently long term? And that's what it's all about.
I'll piggyback on that just to say that, like, are you doing something that you love? Because chances are, like, like the basics are fundamental movement patterns, and it may look different for every person based off of the season that you're in, or whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 50s, your 60s. Like that, it may look different, but the basics are like the same global movement patterns. You're always picking shit up off the ground, getting on and off the toilet, reaching for things, pushing things away from you, twisting, turning, extending, rounding, doing like, are you practicing those things, loading those things, strengthening those mechanics? Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you, Pete, because this is a lot. So, and to your point, we've had like decades now, which means like we've put in the time. So it's really easy for us to sit here and say it. But in terms of like, if it's not easy for someone, if they are starting from scratch, I always like to say that you need to come up with a series of bare minimum habits. So it is also based off of the James Clear 2-minute rule. So it's a little bit expanded of that. So that rule is that like something that you can do, in 2 minutes, that it takes 2 minutes to do. So if the goal is to run a marathon, right, then the bare minimum habit is to put on your running shoes and walk outside. Right. And so what is the like bare minimum habit that helps to get you in the headspace, the environment, and all of that kind of stuff for there? So I'm going to ask you this question. When you are in your worst of it, as in, let's say like on vacation, like you're like totally not training for something, you're like enjoying life, like we're just like having fun and that's it. What would you say are still your bare minimum habits, your no matter what I blank?
Yeah, and just to add to that, there's like, remember that thing that book I sent you about called, I think it was called The One Thing.
That one
Whatever
thing.
it was, The One
I
Thing.
know, it was the book that I was reading on the plane when we met
Right.
For our second date.
Yeah. And it's like, that's slightly different because it's saying like you have to identify the one thing and you have to work towards that one thing your whole life kind of thing. And this is more like, what's the one thing I can at least start my day with that's going to help everything else? And like I always say, like in the Limitless Challenge, for example, if you can just start the day with a glass of water, if you can do that one positive thing, then the chances of you following that with another positive thing are exponential. Like
Totally.
the more positive things you can just kind of stack up, the more likely you are to succeed. So for me, and again, I'll go back to the gym because it has been like the one consistent thing my whole life. I've had other interests and I've had other loves and so forth. But just if I can just get to the gym, or if I can just like get to the beach, or if I can just get something done. And when people are like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I can work out today," it's like, just go and warm up, just go and stretch, and then maybe that will lead to something else. So for me, it's like if I can just commit to like something physical, whether it be like if I can just go for a walk on the beach, or if I can just start warming up, then the chances are that will then lead into a like very effective workout where I'll actually get a lot of work done. But don't think about the big things. Don't think about, oh my God, I've got to do this huge workout today, and I just don't have it in me today, and I just don't want to do it. It's like, fine, just go and warm up, just go and do something, just start moving, and chances are positive things will follow on the back of it. Sometimes we get so caught up in the big picture, we just can't get started. What do you call it? Like paralysis. Analysis paralysis. Like we think about things so much, like on the grand scale, that we can't just do the most basic things. So
that really is it for me too. Like I literally say it 100 times, and I say it to every new person that walks into PHAROS, and I try to like, and we should have it tattooed on everyone's back. Just kidding. But like the 90% is showing up. Like, and at some point, it's not always like, yes, you got to work hard, you got to do things, and like in order to like develop a skill acquisition and really like get past the plateaus, sometimes you got to do the hard work. But most of the time, back to if consistency is the ultimate measure of success, then getting into a philosophy of 90% is showing up, that is the number one thing that will move me forward towards consistency, which is the ultimate measure of success, right? So regardless of whatever it is, if consistency is the goal, then what do you tell yourself? What's the bare minimum thing? It's like, well, then 90% is showing up. If I give 10%, that's 100%. So yeah, show up, do the stretch, get in the room, and it's say also hi to your friends.
It's also that thing of being true to yourself and true to your own principles, and it's like not falling victim to the pressure of others. So let's say you have your code, and let's say you have these values, and you go on holiday, and it's like, oh no, we're not here to work out. We're here to drink and have a good time. Like, why are you working? Why do you want to exercise? Why do you want to work out? It's like, you know yourself. You know what makes you happy. You know what's going to make you have a better experience. And it's definitely not like listening to other people and doing what they think is going to give them a good time. It's like you have to be true to yourself. Like, I know if I go and do this for myself, I'm going to feel a hell of a lot better and enjoy myself more. I'm not going to enjoy myself if my day just starts with like drinking and eating bad food and so forth. So it really
goes back to the philosophy. Like that goes back to the philosophy of like, okay, that hopefully that philosophy of your non-negotiables gets to be your code. So that way, when there is a little bit of resistance and there is a little bit of, pressure, and there is a little bit of like the person on your shoulder, the little, devil on your shoulder that's just like, yeah, why bother or whatever, then you have a code to live by.
And by the way, like neither me and Emylee are saints. Like we like a drink. We like,
my
you know,
Reese's peanut butter cups.
you like your Reese's peanut butter cups. I like my
Those
bourbon.
are full of chemicals for sure.
For sure. Alcohol is not good for you, like in any capacity. But you know, I like a drink. And it's so that's not to say like, oh, I'm going to go away and I'm going to live this like crazy disciplined life. It's just saying, you know, do the stuff that you know is going to nourish you, like, and you can have the goods and you can have the cheat stuff and you can have the like treats, whatever, but it's like having the stuff in your day that actually provides you some kind of joy and happiness.
And really what you're saying is like the ultimate like hierarching like thing is that like you have to think of it with a positive mindset. Like you have, like if you go into it with restriction and you go into it with what you can't do or can't have or can't be or whatever, or how many steps away you are from your goal or whatever, then it's always going to feel like that. You know, it's like, oh man. But if you think about it from like, how do you want to nourish yourself and your life and your body and the goals that you have, and what do you want to do in order to move closer to those, then you have room for all the other stuff. It's not like we're saying like, you know, you do you and live by your code. But if you start by approaching it with a place of like, what do I want my awesome life to look like, and what is that filled with? What are the components and the puzzle pieces that make up that awesome life? And then everything else is just like, okay, I can take it or leave it, you know?
Yeah. And it's also like just not pushing that fuck it button. Because a lot of people, you know, I see it time and time again. It's like one bad movement will lead to consistently bad movements. Yeah. Because
what's that saying? Never miss twice.
Yeah, like, never miss twice.
That's another
it's
good
like
non-negotiable that some people have had.
It is that thing of like, if you start your day with something positive and you get those positives kind of out the way, if you enjoy those positives, and like I said, it'll likely lead to more positives. But then when you do, you know, have whatever quote unquote negative thing that comes into your day, you know, you've already got a ton of positives in the bank. So you're not going to wake up tomorrow and hate yourself and be like, oh my God, I'm such a loser. What did I do that for yesterday? Like, I didn't do anything meaningful. It's like, no, you did. You did a bunch of positive stuff first, and then you let yourself go a little bit, and that's fine, you know? But it's like, you know, if you just have a day full of negatives, the chances of you hating yourself and being losing all self-respect and just being miserable is yeah.
All right, that is it. That's our non-negotiables, yeah?
Yeah.
So we'd love to know what yours are.
Yeah, we'd love you to write them out. We'd love you to write them down. I think it is super helpful. It's definitely been helpful for us to define who you want to be, or who you think you are, or who you would like to be, and also to those actions. Like, what are the actual physical things that you do on a daily basis that kind of sets you up for success? Like I said, we both did it. We find it super helpful. We do it in the challenge. It's super helpful for everybody. So I think you will all benefit from it. So it'll take you 10 minutes, find the time, write them down, let us know, journal it. And yeah, we'd love to hear what makes you guys tick.
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Great to have you as always. The delightful and delicious Emylee Cavell, everybody. Emylee Vodden, you did change your name.
I
we should say.
Finally.
Finally. Guys, Echo Park, our first gym, 1316 Glendale Boulevard, fantastic facility. We're making improvements all the time. Come check it out. It's a wonderful gym, wonderful community. I enjoy it every time I go there. Idlewild, where we live, our second facility, beautiful little gym in the mountains, the biggest little gym on earth. You'll be surprised how much we've managed to fit into a small space, and it really is a fun little gym, and honestly, a great little fun community. Redondo Beach, our third gym, again, amazing group of people down there in the South Bay, like a seaside gym, my Baywatch fantasy gym, super fun, great crowd. I love training there. Come check that out. It's on Artesia Boulevard and close to the ocean, and you know, everything you want out of a kind of beachside gym. And then our new gym, Palm Springs, opening October, right, Emylee?
October 1st. That's the plan. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. This gym, I'm telling you, is going to be like Fantasyland. It's got everything you ever wanted from a gym.
We'll talk about that next.
We'll talk about that in the next podcast. We'll go deep on that on the next podcast. But just trust me, it's going to be incredible, and you guys are going to love it. So we're super pumped for that. But yeah, follow us on Instagram, PHAROS Echo Park, PHAROS Redondo, PHAROS Idlewild, Emylee Vodden, Piet Vodden, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Thanks, guys.